The British state-funded BBC worldwide is guilty of helping sell some of the worst crimes against humanity of the 21st century. This includes helping promote the criminal US-British invasion of Iraq in 2003, the wars in Syria and Libya, and of course virtually every other episode of Western meddling or regime change this century. The BBC, even in the UK, has been repeatedly singled out as lacking impartiality and being untrusted by even Western audiences. And yet, here they are, here in Thailand, not only with their English language propaganda aimed at directly hurting the country, but also Thai language propaganda. Now, you have to think about this. This is British state-funded media in Thailand telling Thai people what's happening in their own country as if Thai people are unable to figure that out or report on it themselves. This is 2020, and this reeks of the old racist British Empire from the 1800s. And what is it that the BBC is reporting on in Thailand? Well, they're making the exact same claims the corrupt billionaire-led opposition are making about the Thai government, the Thai military, and Thailand's monarchy, and they're propping up the US-backed anti-government mobs at every step along the way. This is the BBC nominating protest agitator Roon for one of their made-up awards this year. The BBC here in Thailand also likes to regularly rewrite history, cutting out inconvenient facts that make the opposition look bad. One of the worst offenders of this is the BBC's own Jonathan Head. He's a guy who admitted to me personally that he knows Thaksin Shinawatra was behind the mass murder of over 2,000 people in the 2003 war on drugs. He admitted that Thaksin, despite being a fugitive, was still openly running Pheu Thai. Yet he and the BBC continue leaving these facts out of their daily reporting on Thailand's political crisis. And they do this specifically because these facts would make the anti-government protests and the opposition parties linked to Thaksin look unreasonable, even dangerous, and make the government's efforts to confront and stop them look necessary. Now, the BBC does this because ultimately the BBC, the British government who funds the BBC, and the US government they work with all seek regime change here in Thailand, and specifically want Thaksin and those linked to him in power. That's why in every article, they'll mention the military coups to oust Thaksin and his sister Yingluck, but never mention all the people who suffered and died under both of their governments. More recently, Jonathan Head and the BBC have been actively covering up the violence taking place at these anti-government protests. When protest guards were shooting at each other earlier this week, this is what Jonathan Head of the BBC had to say about the Thai police concluding the obvious, that it was protest guards turning on each other. He says, "Police prejudging likely cause of last night's shooting while investigation is still open. Not the first time I've heard police suggesting any violence is fault of protesters when it could easily have come from outside provocateurs." Of course, evidence emerged almost immediately after the shooting that same night it happened, including video of protest guards conspiring to cover it up, making it very clear it was infighting among the mob. The suspects even made statements to the media, admitting what happened also that same night, all before the police prejudged the case mid-next day. And even the next day before the police were asked about this case, the protest guards made statements on their official social media accounts that confirmed that it was members of their vocational schools involved in the violence, not outside provocateurs. So this is Jonathan Head of the BBC, along with the opposition media, trying to cover up the violence and protect the image of the protesters, when, were he a real journalist, he would be warning the public about how dangerous these mobs actually are. But by covering up the violence and not warning the public, he's actually helping ensure that more violence follows. When you know there is a danger to the public, but you deliberately conceal it, and it ends up hurting or even killing people, aren't you at least partially responsible? In addition to carrying out a daily campaign of propaganda in Thailand, BBC's staff, through the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand, have actually taken corporate foundation money, including from convicted financial criminal George Soros, to train cadres among the local media to reflect Western interests when covering the news. The FCCT did this through an organization that operated out of the FCCT's office called the Indo-China Media Memorial Foundation, or IMMF, and received money from Soros's Open Society Foundation. Jonathan Head of the BBC specifically denied the FCCT had taken any of this money or was involved in any of these activities, but you could just go straight to the IMMF's own website and see with your own eyes that it operated out of the FCCT's offices in Bangkok and even had the FCCT's president, Dominic Falder, as its co-president. That's who the BBC has working for it here in Thailand. Jonathan Head, who not only lies daily about what's happening here in Thailand, but is also lying about foreign-funded sedition the organizations he belongs to are involved in. Whether lying to the public to help sell violent wars of aggression for the US and British around the globe, or aiding sedition here in Thailand, the BBC is not involved in journalism. It hides behind it. People like Jonathan Head are dangerous because so much is being invested by the British government in getting the public to trust people like him and the BBC, and both are dedicated to abusing that trust, to mislead people, divide the country, undermine stability, and lead it to the same sort of tragedies other nations targeted by the US and British around the globe have already suffered. Asia is not the playground of the British Empire anymore, and for Thailand, it never was to begin with. The tools of British influence have no place here in Thailand. And if Thailand is to continue, for whatever reason, allowing the BBC to continue advancing its toxic agenda here, Thai people need to stop it from poisoning their society. And you could do this by setting up alternative media that can confront and overwhelm the BBC's steady stream of disinformation and assert Thailand's best interests in Thailand's own information space over those of the BBC and other foreign media networks like it. And finally, people need to stop treating the BBC as if it's some sort of legitimate news service. It isn't. It gives journalism a bad name. And if people stop giving them interviews, stop taking them seriously, they'll shrink into the irrelevancy that they truly deserve. Please check the video description for all the references. There are so many ugly things about the BBC and Jonathan Head in particular. I couldn't even get it all into this video, so please take a look at it and read through it. There are also ways in the video description you can help support my work, including links to my Patreon account, where I'll be providing exclusive content for members. If you thought this video was useful, please like and share it. If you subscribe to the channel, that also really helps, and I really appreciate that. And as always, thank you very much for watching.